Hey everybody, welcome to another Rackspace Office Hours Hangout. I'm Alan Bush.
I'm Drew Cox.
Hey, and we are broadcasting live from the castle. This is Rackspace's headquarters here in San Antonio, Texas. We're going to be talking a little bit about one of the basic underlying technologies of everything we do, including
all of the web.
All of the web, including live streams like this. So we like we do most of the time, choose to bring on somebody that's a lot smarter than us to talk about that. So let's introduce her right now, Suzanne from CloudFlare. How are you doing today?
Hey everybody, I'm Suzanne Aldrich. I'm a solutions engineer at CloudFlare, and I'm doing great.
That's what we like to hear. Great. So we actually have been talking to you for quite a little while, trying to get this put together, and really appreciate it. I'm going to mention real quick that you wrote a wonderful blog post for our blog as a guest author, really kind of going over all of this, and that was a phenomenal post. I'm really glad you wrote that. So gonna recommend that anybody that's watching it down the road, you can stop right now, pause the video, read the blog, and then catch back up. But
multitask if you want, but
what you do, but it's out there. But Suzanne, you mentioned that you've been working in web technology for quite a while. So why don't you give us a little bit of
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I've been working in the web since approximately I was in high school. I was the person who wrote my first website for my high school, actually. And when I went to college at Stanford, I was the webmaster of the smallest web server in the world at the time, the Matchbox server. And I've really been a participant in web technologies since they really started rolling out, and had a great interest in the development of it, the various trends, the various fads that come and go. And in particular, when I heard HTTP2 was going to be rolling out and was being designed, I was very curious because really nothing has changed about HTTP, which is the hypertext transfer protocol, since about 1997 or so. And that's just really been driving my interest in security and performance on the web.
Great, thank you. That's great. I too developed some stuff in high school, which was always fun. And horrible. I was just thinking about the other day, what would happen if somebody saw that? I need to scour the web and make sure that it's gone.
Luckily, I had nothing.
I'd be out of a job now.
My high school.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So let's take a history trip back and let's talk a little bit about where we are right now with HTTP and kind of how we got there.
Sure, absolutely. Well, HTTP is a fairly simple protocol. It's pretty much just something that you can telnet into a web server, and you can type HTTP 1.1 commands at it. And if you know how to do the headers right and you send over a proper request, you can get back a web page. So it's a very simple protocol. It's been just running fine all over the world for pretty close to 20 years now. And a lot of people want to know, well, why would you want to change it? What's wrong with HTTP? And there's nothing really necessarily wrong with it in and of itself. It's just that how we've been using it. We've been putting a lot of demands on it. Our web pages have a lot of assets connected to them, and there's a lot of interactivity that people are demanding. So over time, it's beginning to show its age a little bit. It has some limitations, including the fact that you can it's a serial protocol. When you send a GET request over to a web server, the web server has to return the requests in the order that they're sent over. And as you can imagine, that's not very efficient, and that's one of the reasons why we've been looking for changes.
Well, that's one of the things that we've worked with our customers quite a bit, and you a site that's a certain size and a site that has a certain footprint to it, but that footprint also includes multiple connections, multiple TCP connections that have to happen each time just to get all that down, and that is horribly. And there's a lot of work that can go into maximizing that, but it sounds like there are better ways to just organize the networking and the infrastructure so that you don't have to spend all that time optimizing.
That's right, and that's really one of the promises that I'm looking forward to, because a lot of times with HTTP, in order to make things more efficient, you have to kind of resort to some certain kludges to try to get around limitations. I mean, browsers, they're stuck in this serial mode where they can only download one thing at a time. They can only make about 4 connections at a time. And if you want to do things that are secure, you have to use TLS, and unfortunately the handshakes in order to encrypt these communications over the wire actually are pretty expensive. And every single time you make one of these TCP requests, you're going to be adding, this additional handshake and all that other overhead. So the idea here is that how can we make the web more efficient, more optimal, without requiring a lot of work on the part of website producers? And I really think that the working group that put together the HTTP 2 proposal spent a lot of time looking at not only the problems that webmasters and web servers were going through and trying to keep their servers from having so much load on them, also looking at how website owners are going to be able to transition over HTTP2 and not have to make too many changes. And the way that they did this is kind of interesting. There's been this interim experimental protocol called Speedy out that Google developed, and it's been out for a while now. Yeah, they've really had a lot of leadership. Obviously, they serve a lot of websites, and they've got the Chrome browser, so they're really on both ends of the deal. And I think that probably allowed them to have a lot of insight, and they have some great engineers over there. But the end result of it is that we've basically made a copy of Speedy, and they pasted that as the first HTTP2 proposal. And we're really utilizing a lot of lessons learned at that point. So the rollout is going to be very quick. When you have automatic uploads of things like Chrome, that really enables this technology to spread very quickly as well.
One thing that was interesting to me is you have Google, right, who has done a lot of interesting things as far as starting these protocols, right, and building these protocols. What I found fascinating is that Google spent a lot of time, building up this protocol on their own. They've done something similar with their amplified mobile pages, right? And so they've gotten a lot of flack recently from some of the web communities about building this protocol on their own. But I wonder if it's going to be a situation similar to Speedy, where they've just done a lot of the work and then just lifted in place and put that framework down as a proposition for the next protocol. So it's interesting to see them having some success with Speedy, and then we can move on and see if they can repeat that again in other places.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely been a little controversy around the design and everything of HTTP2. One of them being the fact that some people wondered, well, maybe we should look at some other different ways of doing this and not rely so much on Speedy. So, I mean, I think we'll see the proof in the pudding at the end of the day. If this ends up working out really well for everybody, I think that controversy is going to be swept away and nobody will remember it.
Absolutely. You get that critical mass, and that's where adoption comes much easier, and that's where partner like Google can really bring a lot of value. I'm running 95% of the things that I do out of Chrome already, and so I'm probably not the only person on the planet doing it that way, and that lends credibility and validity and value to that approach. So that'll work. That's good.
Yeah, definitely.
So can you tell us a little bit about some of the so we've kind of established that HTTP1 has been there for a while. What did you say? 1997, I think, that it was set in stone. We've been using it since then. But what are we looking at now? What are some of the changes that are coming across?
Yeah, so the most important ones are probably related to the fact that we're going to get rid of that head of line blocking problem and that problem with serial communications by multiplexing, which is where you're able to mix up parts of different streams. You can take one request and kind of interleave it with another request, and depending on the way that network packets work through, you'll end up basically being able to reassemble that at the other end, and they can go ahead and make a proper set of streams for those requests and send it back to the client. And this should really be better, and it'll actually take better advantage of the underlying TCP technology, whereas before we weren't really taking advantage of the ways that you could change packets around through networks. So that's one really big improvement. Another really big improvement is the fact that there's going to be prioritization, and that can be controlled by the client. So if the client needs something faster than other things, they can set a priority and get that one back as quickly as possible. A really important no-brainer that really helps a lot of websites out these days, especially the ones with the big cookies, is HTTP header compression. Now, one of the best things about the rollout of HTTP2 is the fact that the general syntax of the protocol is the same. It's just that this is being wrapped up in this binary framing protocol, and that allows the multiplexing and also the ability to do this compression. Instead of having all of your packets sent along with just headers and a couple new lines and a body, you're going to have separate header and separate data packets. And it's really going to allow for better security as well as this compression. So the compression is pretty interesting in and of itself. They actually developed a new technology for this called HPAC. And the reason for that is that it's basically it's a lot more secure than GSIP compression, where you could end up with crime attacks on the compression level. So really, at the end of the day, you're going to end up with something that's a lot more concise across the network, and at the same time, it's going to be routed a lot more efficiently for people.
That's I think going to be. It's already seeming like the sites that are taking advantage of it are getting a huge benefit from it. One of the things you mentioned in your blog post is that you actually had a 5 times improvement in the number of top million websites that were fully HTTP2 compliant, right?
Yeah, we really when we did the rollout, it was actually pretty impressive. It automatically took place for all of our free and pro customers. We did allow people at the enterprise level to do a code over themselves, from being able to support Speedy going over to be able to support both Speedy and HTTP2, which I should mention is actually a unique characteristic of the CloudFlare implementation of HTTP2. Because of the fact that we were concerned about market share and we didn't want to necessarily just completely cut over right away and make it something where our customers had to really test to enable to make sure that it fit their needs, even though it's a fairly transparent change. What we did is we made a fork of Nginx that allows for a negotiation on the connection. So if the browser can support Speedy, we'll give it Speedy. If it can support HTTP2, we can give it an HTTP2 version. And we basically were able to work with the people who were making the algorithm measuring the rollout of HTTP2 to ensure that they were accurately measuring our rollout. And you can see in the Is It HTTP2 Yet website that Cloudflare-Nginx is really the web server that has rocketed up as of December, making this huge spike in the uptake of the websites. And we're very proud of that.
Nice, that's a fun site.
Oh, I'm not hearing.
Website owners need to do to make that work.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So for website owners, there's a few different things that you need to do. Obviously, it's based on server technology and client technology. So the server has to be able to serve HTTP2, and the client, the browser, has to be able to handle HTTP2. So in order to start serving it, and then your clients can automatically start receiving it, you have to actually have a version of web server that is compatible with HTTP2. Most of the major web servers are now. Apache is if you install a mod HTTP2 module, and Nginx is if you go ahead and get the correct version, an updated version. It's currently experimental, but in order to add, for example, a support to HTTP2 on your Nginx sites, all you really need to do is make sure you have the right version of Nginx. And then on the line where you set up your server to listen on the port, instead of just saying SSL, you add to it HTTP2, and that's really all you need to do to enable web server support for it. And there's going to be some additional extensions like server push that will require further modifications, perhaps at the web application level, perhaps even at the web server level. It's a little bit up in the air now how people are going to want to implement that. There might be more than one way to do it, but how server push works is that when you start downloading a web page, one of the other great facilities of HTTP2 is to go ahead and the server will push out to the browser resources it knows it needs. And so instead of waiting for a browser to go through and compile the DOM and figure out, oh, I need this CSS file, or oh, I need that JavaScript, the server will have already pushed and it'll have it in its and already get started on rendering those elements. So it'll probably be in the header. You can send a link header over. That's going to be one common implementation. Another one you're probably going to see is in a tag in the HTML page where you can add links to resources. And depending upon the server implementation, they'll probably start looking for those kinds of tags in your pages as well. So that's essentially how we're anticipating people are going to need to change their web applications in order to really start leveraging some of the additional power of it. But besides that, if you install HTTP2 and you can just go ahead and start serving your normal web pages, and it shouldn't really require too much change on your side besides.
Great. Glad it's easy to do that.
Anytime that you can get additional value and efficiency out of minimal change is a huge
couple of lines
deal.
of code change.
Yeah, when you can do a very minimal, impactful step and get massive benefits pretty quickly, that's a huge conversation to have.
Well, and then I think one other thing that we would like to address, since we have you here from CloudFlare, tell us a little bit more about how CloudFlare is working on this, because I know that CloudFlare, personally on my sites, has been very, very nicely caching everything for me. But how does the caching and everything change when you go to HTTP2?
Absolutely. Well, because we're a reverse proxy, we had to make an implementation where we didn't necessarily need to require any changes whatsoever on your end. So for all your personal sites, how it works is that we're serving HTTP2 on our edge to end users, and we're making requests back to your website with HTTP 1.1 currently. Although that might change in the future. But we're making our requests, we're going ahead and caching them, and then when your visitors come and make requests against your host, which we serve through the DNS for, then we'll just grab using HTTP2 out of our cache and deliver that to all the people running the latest versions of Chrome or Mozilla. And if not, we'll go ahead and detect that, and we'll automatically serve them over a speedy connection. And also, just so everybody's aware, CloudFlare provides free SSL certificates to everyone, which is necessary for HTTP2 because all the browser manufacturers only support HTTP2 over TLS connections. Another little controversy, but I think something that'll be wiped away in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a good policy to have. I'd like to see everything secured. So being able to do that and have that the certificate available is very helpful. Very helpful. Good.
That's definitely true. A lot of people don't like the administrative aspect of having to renew their certificates over and over again. So if this is something that helps enable better security and performance, we're all for it, and that's exactly what our mission is here.
Yeah, a little bit of convenience can be a huge preventative measure against all the other concerns that come along with not taking the extra step of going the cert direction, going with the SSL.
That's right.
I'd agree.
And
and the forgetfulness of, oh, that just expired. Now I have to scramble. That's a bad day.
No,
it's always a good idea to double check. Yeah, double check your renewal dates on your domain names as presidential candidates are learning. That you have to double check all of that as well.
Don't be that guy.
Well, that's funny. They should know they can file in California court because there's actually a law that you can't be a political person and have another person's domain name. So just a little side note, people out there with presidential campaigns. Yeah, it's political cyber fraud. We don't want that. And actually, I don't think that you could support over SSL if you know, with a very high level certificate like an EV certificate, if you weren't a legitimate owner of that website. So, you know, watch out, people. What sites you're going to? They're potentially political cyber fraudists out there.
Gotta watch out. Gotta watch out. Great. All right, real quick, I just want to remind anybody that's watching that this is the Rackspace Office Hours Hangout. We are talking here with Suzanne Aldrich about HTTP2. Suzanne is a solutions engineer at CloudFlare, one of our partners and friends, and we're happy to have her on today, learning quite a little bit about it. I mean, it looks like it's going to be the transition's already happening, and I think that it's going to be a nice, easy transition as more and more people start to adopt this. Suzanne, what do you think are some of the current barriers that might be in the way of people adopting HTTP2?
Sure. One of the things that people might be curious about is, there are things that they've been leveraging to take advantage of HTTP 1.1 problems, essentially. People are doing things like concatenating their CSS. They are inlining CSS in their actual websites.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing things like sharding their domain names and having static1.mysite.com and static2.mysite.com in order to get around some of those connection limits that browsers have. And I think there probably be a little hemming and hawing about how to pull away from those practices, or whether they need to. So, for example, you're probably going to need to pull away from inlining right away. It makes more sense to just deliver the assets that you need at the time that you need, rather than make giant monolithic files, and that causes a lot of time and headache. However, unwinding from that might take a little bit of time too. Going towards a better, a pattern of utilizing smaller resources that you're delivering that are specific for that particular part of the web application. The other aspect with the sharding, people might wonder, well, do I need to get rid of all these other web hosts? Do I need to put my assets together on the same host in order to take advantage of the kind of multiplexing that HTTP2 offers? And actually, it depends upon the situation, but in general, HTTP2 is able to make good distinctions about where the endpoint of host is, and if it's the same IP address, it'll actually take advantage of the same TCP connection, so you won't incur overhead again. So that's actually one worry you won't have to worry about. Besides that, obviously, having some kind of web server that supports HTTP2, it takes a little time to roll out changes. Nobody really wants to have to go and make a big change to your application, and we recognize that, and that's one of the reasons why at Cloudflare we are still making the connection back to the origin of HTTP 1.1, but in the future hope to, as this adoption grows, to be able to expand that so we can get the full stack experience across from origin to the proxy as well.
Great.
Well, cool. We actually have a question in from our producer here, Tyler, and I'm going to see if I can get the question right, and he's going to correct me if I'm asking that the wrong way. But how will HTTP2 affect TLS and SSL traffic and cert purchases, especially when you have some of that stuff already in place? You've got an SSL cert already. You decide to adopt through Cloudflare. What does that look like? And then I'll get more clarification that came to mind in reading that.
Sure, absolutely. So as far as the requirement for having SSL, TLS set up in order to take advantage of HTTP2, it is going to be a challenge for certain providers of web services. For example, those who might need to have some kind of intermediary router installed with a certificate or some kind of other equipment. And so that's probably one of the largest challenges. With Cloudflare, we do this really cool thing where we issue certificates pretty much for free. Nice coffee. I like the drip coffee. That's the best. What we do is we basically make it so that once you sign up with us for DNS, we automatically give you an SSL certificate. All you have to do is basically point your name servers to Cloudflare, and then we automatically have the provisioning process where within about 15 minutes, you'll have your certificate available and active over HTTPS, and you can just start utilizing that. You might have to make a couple configurations if your origin server doesn't support HTTPS, but essentially that could allow you to not even have to ever purchase an SSL certificate. Theoretically, you could just be running HTTP 1.1, not over TLS at all, and then as visitors come to our proxy, we'll cache the things and do all the serving, and so the end user will get all that benefit without you really doing anything except for signing up. So for me, I think that would be the first that I would do if I want to try out HTTP2. just to
That's great.
give it a test run and try it on a test site.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. I know that there's a lot of different ways that you can um, just test things out. One of the things that I've done quite frequently is just run a static website, and with Rackspace Cloud Files, you can host it's a flat file. In fact, I put together basically a business card the other day because Drew and I were having an argument about whether or not business cards are even useful anymore or not. They're not.
Business card is over.
But I put together one, and it's a flat site. And there's the thing that you were mentioning earlier, inlining the CSS, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out ways to get this thing to resolve faster and faster and faster, and I'm minifying it. And I'm changing images into SVG and base 64 encoding it so I can put it all into one file, and it's like, okay, now I've got this thing down to one file, and I'm wondering now, was that even worth it? Is that something that's there? But anyways, it's a great way to test it, right? So the lessons I learned, right? And that's what I'm getting at here is that learned a few lessons, but it's behind the cache at Cloudflare there, and it's out there, and that's a really good way to test that. And so now I think I might just have to turn that into a little project site and see what I can do to add some SSL and everything and get that served up the right way.
Might as well.
Absolutely.
I love static sites. They're my favorite thing to play with.
Kind of. Oh yeah. Okay, can you hear me now? There we go.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, static sites were one of the first ways that we built websites, right? I mean, it was all HTML, and now we've got a bunch of really cool tools that help us do that. I've used Pelican and Jekyll, and I'm using a tool called Hugo right now, and those are all great little tools that pull those together. You're a Hugo fan?
I am a big Hugo fan. It's huge. I say it with an H, so I guess I'm like Bernie.
Yeah, it's huge with a and it's fast. It's so fast. So,
anything you can do to minimize what you're managing and still get your goals met. I am a huge fan of doing that whenever possible, and so one of the things that makes us such big fans of Cloudflare is the ability to mark so many things off of your requirements list that you're going to have to figure out one way or another without having to manage it and own it and maintain it and all of the stuff that comes along with that. A flat, static HTML site is very much the same type of situation. I don't have a server to manage. I have a bunch of stuff in object stores and cloud files that do it for me, and I don't have to go in and make sure that my web service is up to date and manage and maintain a database and all of that stuff. No, if I can still achieve my goal without that, I'm going to find a way to do it.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things we talk about quite a bit on the show is prioritizing what is most important to your business and being able to say, you know what, the content that I want to put out on my blog is more important to me than managing the infrastructure behind it, going all the way up to some of our larger customers that are working with complex enterprise applications. The more that they can take off of their internal IT teams and put onto us to handle, the more that we can help them with partners and work with partners like Cloudflare to take off some of that, some of the routing, web application firewall, for example, putting up some layers of DDoS protection in there. Like that helps, and that really helps us to focus on what we're good at, and it helps the customers to focus on what they need to be good at.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree. Over time we've seen going from you had to really do everything. You had to have every hat on. You had to know how to run every kind of database and all of the various compression and how to set up TLS and signing your own certificates, everything. But it's getting to the point now where you're right. You can kind of offload all these efforts onto different people, and that really helps me focus on the thing that I want to do, which is produce great content that's really usable and easy to find, and enable others to do that most performant, secure, and usable way possible. So I definitely am completely in agreement about that, and it applies even when you're doing dynamic stuff. Any way that you can kind of segment out certain parts and make it repeatable, and make that configuration something that you don't have to manually type in, it's always a win. Less opportunity for mistakes, And at the end of the day, we can go home and enjoy ourselves, and not have to worry so much about exactly the server, configuration or the network topology. We can basically concentrate on our competencies.
Absolutely. I think automation is a huge piece of addition to be able to say, like, I have a repeatable process that I deploy everything the same way, and I know exactly what it's supposed to look like. And then as you grow and you can have things that can self-heal and be more resilient, that's a huge conversation, because instead of something that you deploy it automated, but then you still have to manage it, well, now you get a digest of, well, here's what happened. This server failed. We kicked it out. We replaced it. It's fine. We didn't have to wake you up or anything. That's a great day. That's a day that you did get to go home and enjoy yourself and didn't spend those cycles worrying about what if and checking your Slack channel to see if anything is blown up or you have to put out any fires. Less and less of that is required when you bring in these additional technologies.
Yep, that's exactly one of the reasons why I'm really excited to be a web professional today. Having a lot of lessons learned under our belt, we've all suffered through the fires. We've seen, all the performance bottlenecks you can see, and it's great to have, generations of people who've grown up with the web, like we were making our websites in high school now, and perhaps our children will be making their elementary school websites, and imagine that it's going to be a new standard. So. I'm looking forward to see the future of the web and how we're able to all collaborate together with this pretty incredible communications technology, if you think about it.
And as we have more access to expertise, like what CloudFlare is doing, the less we spend trying to learn and adopt all of the beneficial technologies out there, the more we get to spend on what makes what thing we can deliver to the rest of the world that's valuable. And so we've got incredibly creative and artistic people who are not having to fool with managing a site. They can just push their stuff in that direction, and all of a sudden I can go and see that video short or that beautiful painting or whatever is being generated, be it a new app that's fantastic or whatever. That content is available much more quickly to much more of the world, and so it's an accelerator on the excitement of the world.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So kind of moving back toward some of the
away on track. Thank you.
Yeah, away from the static websites that we were building years ago, and moving more toward yesterday when we were all in high school, right? Moving more toward some of the more dynamic things, and kind of tying into the as a service solutions that we're talking about. Do you have any information on kind of the uptake of HTTP2 across some of the more popular platform as a service? I'm thinking like Squarespace. I'm thinking WordPress.com, things like that.
Yeah, mostly the information that I have is regarding, we're CDNs, so I look around at the market data on CDNs, and because a lot of big websites are really utilizing them, and in order to take advantage of this technology, and in addition to being able to bring your content closer to the eyeballs, which is another proven way to reduce latency, especially for sites that are perhaps producing a lot of dynamic content on their back end. They really need a way to get everything as close to the eyeballs as possible to the end users, and this is really necessary, especially for those platform as a service providers, where people really want to see very quick response times. So as that need has grown, it's required people to move towards CDNs and in proxies and add kinds of technology. So really at this time, there's only a handful of CDNs that are actually supporting HTTP2 of the major CDNs, and actually there's not a single one of them that offers the ability to negotiate HTTP2 and speedy like Cloudflare does. So we're really unique in that space. As far as the overall uptake, it's starting to grow a bit. If you look at sites that are actually under us, we have a lot of great big names, and they're mostly starting to take advantage of that HTTP2 just by clicking the buttons at the business and enterprise level. I don't think Square is signed up at the free plan, so they didn't have it automatically turned on for them. But anybody who is at Cloudflare on a free pro is immediately taking advantage of that, which is a great many customers of ours. We have pretty close to over 2 million customers at this time, so it's a pretty big chunk of the web at this point.
Oh, that's great. That's a great big number there. Congratulations. and thanks as well. Thanks.
Absolutely, we're here to protect and serve.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job of it. Thank you. Okay, so I guess that answers the big question: is how do you get started with it? Well, you just one easy way to do is to sign up for Cloudflare.
That's a good way to get going, and then if you want to get deeper into the rest of your config and being able to deliver that on your own, I mean, that's something that you can do at your leisure, since you have and then go with Cloudflare.
Yeah, I guess it's a question that I have is, you mentioned that right now Cloudflare is sending HTTP 1 requests to the origin servers, and is receiving, most likely, I would guess since it's a request, the reply would be also in HTTP 1, but then it's translating that to HTTP 2 to hit the end users' browsers, right? So what are the are there any ways to turn that on to HTTP 2 all the way end to end if a user's already opted in?
Not quite yet. We are definitely going to be moving in that direction, though. I will say that we're imminently going to be adding the support for server push. So to take advantage of that, you would actually need to make a change at your end in order to add, we're going to start off with the headers. So it's easiest to just add a link header, and you link that off to the resource and give it basically a rel equals preload, and that will signal to us to go ahead and push that to the end user through the server push, and then they don't even have to parse the document at all, and we'll already have that on the way, delivered on a silver platter to them, and it will also be it'll be cached too. So that'll be a super technique when you want to get your static website. You're just going to need to add a couple headers to that, and then eventually we would like to also add the ability to put links directly in the HTML for those who add additional headers for their web server. So that will enable people using more kinds of PaaS services that just have access to the HTML output.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that clarification there. Well, Drew, I think that we've answered all the questions that I came in asking. Did you have any additional questions that are burning that we have to make sure we get out?
We may have been on the same page coming in, because I had some more questions.
All right, well, great. Well, Suzanne, thank you for taking a couple minutes out of your day to spend with us here and chat with us about HTTP 2.
Oh, thanks for letting me on. It was great to be able to expand the knowledge out there about it. I know it certainly excited me, so I hope it excites some of your peers as well to kind of try that out, see what kind of page response times you get.
Yeah, we absolutely will, and what there's just so much information. It was a very information-dense session that we had here.
Which is a good thing.
It's always a good thing. So I think that we're probably going to need to cut it up a little bit and take a couple of the individual chunks of knowledge and kind of put them together, because what I've noticed as we were talking here is you've kind of set out a roadmap for people to for our customers to get ready to start to use HTTP 2 and kind of a roadmap of steps they can take. So I think it's going to be something that's going to be living in our community for quite a while, giving people some instruction. So thanks, really appreciate that.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Great. Great. All right. Well, again, this is Suzanne from Cloudflare, and she's been sharing a lot of information with us about HTTP 2, which is now, by default, being all of your content on Cloudflare is getting to the end users in that format. So, huge service from them. Again, kind of leading the way. We did SSL a while ago, and that was a huge push to get SSL out to everybody. So again, thanks for helping to make the web safer and faster. So it's great stuff. I guess on that note, we'll go ahead and say goodbye to Suzanne and everybody else, and say we'll catch you next time.
See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.